Buongiorno a tutti. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this panel, which will be hosted in English. My name is Alice. I am from Turin, Italy, and I am the events manager at Music Cities Events. And among other things, we organize conferences all over the world about music and impact and benefits it can have on music, on destinations and cities, including its potential in economic development, social development, tourism, well-being, and much more. And I am thrilled to be part of this conference, sharing best practices on how to harness the potential of music for tourism. I know Italy has a lot to offer, and I hope today has been very inspiring for you all. I'm thrilled to be moderating this panel, which will provide an overview on what some of the leading music tourism destinations in Europe, such as Dusseldorf, Hamburg, and Liverpool, have been doing to foster tourism and position their destination using music. So let me introduce you to our speakers. We have Nora Will, Manager of Market Development at Visit Düsseldorf. Hey, Nora. And then we have
Hi,
Johannes.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And then we have Johannes Everke, Director of Marketing Services and Head of Digital Marketing at Hamburg Marketing. Hey, Johannes.
Hello.
And last but definitely not least, Chris Brown, Director of Marketing at Visit Liverpool.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hey, Chris. Okay, so thank you all for joining us. And why don't we start with a quick round of introductions? And you can tell us a bit more about who you are and what you do, and also tell us a bit about your city. So Chris, why don't we kick it off with you?
Yes, good afternoon. Yeah, so I'm Chris Brown. I'm Director of Marketing Liverpool. So our kind of remit is primarily around in trying to basically get people to come and visit the city, invest in the city, stay in the city, study in the city, all the kind of things that are important for the brand of Liverpool. And in that context, and in relation to today, music has increasingly taken a high profile for us in terms of how we can use music to lever in additionality into the Liverpool brand. And we'll talk a bit more about that during the sense of the conversation, but clearly for us, it's been a project that we've been looking at really now for about the last 5 or 6 years, primarily built around obviously the fact that we have the inherent value of having the Beatles coming from Liverpool, but also the UNESCO City of Music status that we had in 2015. Yeah, so this has given us a platform in which to develop a well kind of thought through music city model and strategy, which we'll talk about during the sense of the conversation. But music has increasingly taken a big role for us, particularly now coming out of the pandemic, and we look forward to sharing some of our thoughts and experiences of that with the rest of the panel and the audience today.
Okay, thank you so much. And moving to Germany, Nora, tell a bit about yourself, please.
Yes, thank you again for inviting me. My name is Nora. I work at Visit Düsseldorf, and I'm part of the market development team. Among other things, I organize press trips for international journalists, increasingly also for music journalists, and I work on different projects on the visual arts and music scene. I'm also the regional project manager for Urban, which is a project that aims to promote the region as a creative destination and also as a place to study, start a business, and work at exciting companies. And we do this, we team up with Cologne, the rural area, and the tourism destination marketing organization for the federal state. And increasingly, for the last several years, we have started building a brand around the sound of Düsseldorf, and we've really noticed an increase in interest in this music tourism in Düsseldorf, and we are really glad to be part of all these different initiatives and this panel today.
Thank you. And then finally going north to Hamburg. Actually, the first city I was lucky enough to visit as my first international trip since the pandemic. So Johannes, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Johannes from Hamburg Marketing. Hamburg Marketing is a city-held company which involves business development for the whole city and tourism marketing at the same time. me in my field, I work on marketing corporations. So we look for partners within the city, like in the music, in terms of music business, it could be festivals or artists or companies, to promote Hamburg together and to help them at the same time in their promotion. So we'll come back later for examples, but Reeperbahn Festival, Elbphilharmonie, or the musical plays in Hamburg are very strong partners for us that all together make Hamburg the strongest city in music tourism within Germany. So more than 2.5 million visitors per year come here only for music, and this is quite something within the brand of Hamburg.
Yeah, some very interesting numbers and stats there. I'm looking forward to going back and discussing that a bit more. But yeah, just to kick things off, as we all know, there can be many different meanings to the term music cities and music tourism, as every city is different, yours, ours as well. And one can have maybe a strong music heritage, the other can have a signature music festival, another can have like a thriving underground scene, for example. So could you please tell us a bit about why you think your city is a music city? What type of elements other destinations should be on the lookout for when trying to define their place as maybe a music city or a music tourism destination? And this is a question for all of you, so feel free to jump in whenever you want.
Liverpool perspective, we looked at this really around, ostensibly looking at the classic kind of music city model, really in the first instance of the strategies associated with setting up a music city, and that wasn't just about tourism. It's about audience development. It's about access to space, engaging broader community, music advisory boards, music officers, and sort of friendly policies within the city. And I think in a certain respect, I think the importance of this is we had to get the foundations in place first before we started maximizing the impact of otherwise there is no foundations to build from. We used, I think, a piece of work that we did back a few years ago, which was actually just looking at the economic impact of the Beatles industry. We'd never actually done that before, so we never really knew what it was worth. And I think what that started to do was to start to tell us, well, that was well worth, conservatively, well over £100 million to the city. It started to tell us, wait a minute, this is actually, there's something in this in terms of the contribution that music tourism can make to a place. And additionally to them, we started that process of saying, right, well, actually, we bidded for UNESCO City of Music to give us the gravitas and credibility to cement that. We got that back in 2015. And then I think what that started to do was create the three things that really have started to be the planks that we built from. And that was the understanding of the economic importance of the music sector and music tourism, the creation of a dedicated music officer in the city to take forward the initiatives we wanted to do, and the creation of a music industry board that started to build the expertise. And I think from a starting point, that's enabled us to then start the animation and development of the music sector in the city. But I think without that base, we had been playing at this for a number of years. We had always saw the value of music tourism, but we'd never, and the music industry in its wider context, but we'd never really put in the strategic direction of travel, which would allow us to maximize the impact of music to the city. So I think from our perspective, setting that base was so important for us.
Yeah, it seems like, understanding what you have in the city and carrying like measurements and surveys and studies, I think that could be the first step for a city that is trying to look at music, to really understand what you have, to then build on a strategy around that. Johannes, what's your take on this?
Yeah, it's almost the same perspective. We became a city of music because of different factors that were, some of them were like politically, strategically set up, others weren't. So Hamburg is a music city because we have both a musical heritage, a long history back into the Baroque era, but still today classical music is a very thriving scene. At the same time, there's club music, pop and rock music. The Beatles 50 years ago started in Hamburg, something that connected us very closely to Liverpool since. But at the same time, there's lots of musicians, festivals, promoters, concert halls, and a music industry that covers all aspects of the value chain, from musicians, publishing, recording, promoting. So there's like all different fields of the music, including the schools and training in all different musical fields are present. So it is a music city from different perspectives.
Great. Nora, what's happening in Düsseldorf instead?
Yes, I think if you look at Düsseldorf and what makes it a music city and the way we look at our music DNA, it's always obvious, and we always we like to talk about this a lot, that the visual arts and music have always had a strong connection in the city. So I think if you ask people, a lot of them are going to say that the Art Academy, which is going to celebrate 250 years in 2 years, they are the heart of the cultural scene in Düsseldorf, and in and around the Art Academy there has always been this strong connection of artists and musicians, and they've kind of supported each other and drank beers together at the Cream Cheese Club. And for us, this strong connection is just can be found everywhere. You can see it in our institutions. The Kunstpalast, which is going to host a big exhibition at the end of this year until going into the next year, has its own concert hall. The Kunsthalle, which is another exhibition space, they have the Salon des Amateurs, like a really famous electronic music club, as part of the kind of institution. So we always see this strong connection between the visual arts and our music scene. And I mean, we try to never, when we look at our DNA and our heritage, we try to never look at just one band and just make it about this one topic. But obviously, looking at our music heritage, the influence of Kraftwerk and other bands and musicians, there's just no comparison. So we've started to compile a list of about 1,000 quotes of bands and like Coldplay, Depeche Mode, Run DMC, U2, and just many others, together with a music journalist and an illustrator, and we've tried to kind of look at the influence of Kraftwerk on these different musicians. So we think that this is where the base of our DNA as a music city is, but obviously it's much more than that. It's the big arenas as well as the smaller venues that are kind of the bedrock of our music scene. And it's the festivals that some of them come and go, but they always have this strong connection to kind of the parks and the outdoor spaces in Düsseldorf. And there's lots and lots of things happening, and we just see this connection from the heritage and music history that we have to the current scene. And this is where we started our kind of explorations in music tourism.
Yeah, but you just raised a very interesting point, actually, balancing heritage and the current scene. And I actually wanted to ask you about that as well, like with Kraftwerk and all that, obviously when someone thinks about Düsseldorf and music there, obviously they think about the origin of electronic music and kind of their legacy, but what are the challenges to try and find a balance between the two aspects, and what are some of the tips that you would like to share with maybe other cities?
The first challenge was really getting this wake-up call, because for a long time, to be totally honest with you, we hadn't really focused on the topic of music tourism. So the Kraftwerk concert during the Grand Départ of the Tour de France in 2017, that was really our wake-up call, so to speak. And then in 2018, the Music Tourism Convention was in Cologne, and we were able to invite the participants of this conference to come to Düsseldorf, and really talking to participants of this very important conference and talking to music journalists, we just really noticed that we need to invest in this topic a lot more. And then in 2019, we premiered the Sound of Düsseldorf tour. It's a city tour, a walking tour, which was kind of the first tangible product that you could book. And I think the tour is a good example of connecting the heritage and the current scene, because it covers nearly 50 years of music history in Düsseldorf, but at the same time, they also try to incorporate locations that are important to the current music scene in the city. So I think that is one example, the way we kind of connect the two of them. But obviously it's important to not just make it all about the past, but also make it about the future. And we've started lots and lots of different projects that also aim to illustrate where the current scene is taking place, and interesting players and newcomer bands and things like that.
Awesome. And obviously, Chris, you have kind of the same problem, the same happy problem in Liverpool with the Beatles. But you just mentioned in your introduction that part of your role is also to attract people, students, and investment, and music can play a huge part of that. So how do you balance the Beatles legacy with the current scene, and also with your goals as a marketing director in Liverpool?
Yeah, I think this is a kind of really important part in terms of, you know, making sure. I mean, I think if you look at, you know, some of how we look at other destinations, if you look at somewhere like Memphis, I think in probably where Memphis is too celebrating of the past and is a bit more stuck in the past. If you look at somewhere like Nashville, I think it's much more about building on that legacy, but building into the future. And I think Liverpool's got the same sort of genre around it in terms of, you know, maximizing the impact of the Beatles, but not being sort of overshadowed by that, and beginning to look at how we pull together, using that powerful brand, how we can raise the profile of, as an example, what we're doing at the moment is a lot around black music in the city. Yeah? So we've tended sometimes to use the black music in the city as a sort of part where we do a part of Black History Month or whatever, but now actually it's becoming much more part of integral to the core offer that we have every day of the week, in the same way as what we do around the work for clubbers, that we do for festival goers, that we do for a whole host of different genres of music. So we've used really the tags and the hooks of the Beatles and our UNESCO status to really unearth a much more rounded, futuristic view about how to really build on what was there before and make sure that it's there for generations to come. And that's why I think the creation, the best move we made here was to create the dedicated music office and the board, because what that started to do is it gave the individual businesses that fundamentally have no real desire to get too involved with the public sector if they can help it. But in one respect, we needed that, particularly during the COVID pandemic. We needed something that could help them navigate around planning, licensing, grant support to make sure they survived during that period. If we hadn't had that infrastructure, wouldn't have been able to do it. And the music board has therefore helped us really set the strategy and set the direction, and made sure that everything we're doing is set in a futuristic context. So this is about how we support, you know, businesses that are coming into the city, this whole ecosystem that has come out really around how the music sector is quite a complicated little sector, in terms of it's not just about the big brands like the Beatles, it's about how we support our independents, how we support our music producers, how we support our bands and our structures in that space. So we've really begun to look at how that whole initiative comes together. So when we came to things that we worked with the UK government on, for example, when we were doing some of the work around the events research program, we were able to bring together private sector to develop a kind of music program as part of that events research program for the UK government. And we wouldn't have been able to do that without these sort of structures in place. So for us, it's really important that we celebrate and don't forget the likes of the Beatles, because they are immensely important to us. They're immensely important from an international perspective, but to use them much more as a catalytic effect to inspire others to come to a place where the Beatles came from, to do their music, to do it in the way that they want to do it, and to encourage them to develop. So that's really, really important for us going forward.
Johannes, any thoughts on this? I'm sure, like, I think the key word that Chris mentioned is ecosystem. So what about the ecosystem in Hamburg? How is that structured, and how do you connect the different stakeholders in your city?
Yeah, it's exactly as Chris said. It's an interaction between the ecosystem and some lighthouse tower projects or heritage or famous bands or some single players. And it's like an interaction like the palm tree and the oasis. You need palm trees to find the oasis, but there wouldn't be any palm tree without the oasis. So it's a living body. It's an interacting scene, and so we think in an integrated way as well, so that we approach the players in Hamburg to think about a common strategy to develop the infrastructure and the music scene in Hamburg, and then together promote it as well. And it wouldn't work one without the other. We wouldn't have something to promote if there wouldn't be a vivid and living and strong music scene, and the other way around. And so interaction and communication and cooperation is the key to a thriving industry.
I think this is really like this could be a central point also of this discussion, because I think this broad coalition of stakeholders that you obviously already have in Liverpool and in Hamburg, and that we are also trying to create. This is really a central point, because looking at the way different tourism destination marketing organizations and city marketing organizations, how the Office of Cultural Affairs is involved, and how economic development plays into it in different projects, that is, I think, such a central point. And we just maybe to name a thing that we think is a very good practical recommendation, we've used our tour, The Sound of Düsseldorf, this walking tour, and we've invited different stakeholder groups within the city to go on this tour and kind of really get to know this topic firsthand. So that has really worked very well for us. And I think we also notice two developments. One is that we noticed that pop music is receiving a lot more recognition, also sometimes in terms of funding, which we think is a good development, and is also kind of an effect of the way that different stakeholder groups have started to engage with this topic. And also we see that in Düsseldorf, increasingly music tourism is also seen as a topic that can drive tourism. We are not at all at the stage that Liverpool is at, but we see that there is an increase of interest and an increase of acceptance, and kind of a drive to recognize that music tourism can drive visitor numbers in the way that the visual arts and big exhibitions can. And I think that we also always think of the target groups as similar, the target groups for the people who come to big exhibitions in Düsseldorf and the ones that come to Düsseldorf to get to know, to kind of relive their music, their personal musical heritage again. And this is why we always connect these topics, and I think that is a good development for us, but also obviously for other destinations.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's super interesting how like different targets, but also different stakeholders can really, connect with each other, especially in different sectors. Like one in a city can think of transportation or food and beverage, and you think, what does that have to do with tourism or with music? But then it does, it's everything is connected. So if you put in touch like someone from a venue and then someone from the transportation company that runs in the city or things like that, a lot of synergies can come out of those like conversations. And just really starting from the city saying, hey, we really want to connect this type of people, we want them to thrive in the city and at the same time drive visitor numbers. I think that's super important, and you're obviously all very good at that, and I hope a lot of people will find inspiration from what you just said. And also obviously you work in the marketing departments of your respective cities, so you're kind of more from the tourism perspective. And so I just wanted to get a little bit perhaps more technical and talk about strategies. And so providing us with an example of like a campaign you did that involved music and how that was organized, what type of people it brought together and which channels did it use, something like that, to really, inspire people that want to look at this, say, okay, I work at a tourism office and I want to do something with music, and maybe like providing some example would be really helpful for them. Johannes?
Yeah. There are two different perspectives. One is the city branding perspective. The other one would be the sales-driven music tourism perspective, for me to explain both. From the tourism perspective, cooperation with the musical plays in Hamburg started in '86 when Cats, the musical, started in Hamburg, and suddenly the city found out that would drive so many people to Hamburg per year. Like it's around 2 million tourists come to Hamburg to visit musical plays. So the city invested in musical plays, and together they build up a really stronghold for the industry within Germany, and that could drive the tourism. At the same time, every tourist that is coming to Hamburg and taking the ferry across the river Elbe to the festival venues gets an impression of the city that will never vanish. And this is really core city branding to do that. So this is one thing that we economically very successfully cooperated with the musical companies in Hamburg. On the other hand, city branding. So we analyzed what does Hamburg stand for, the brand Hamburg, what is known and positively seen by consumers and companies within Germany and abroad. And music in different perspectives turned out to be a real asset in the city branding. And so we thought about, okay, how could we develop this? How could we communicate this as a credible, authentic strength within the brand Hamburg? And because at the end of the day, this will drive tourism, this will drive the economic development, this will drive any growth of the city if there's a consistent, successful city marketing and branding. And to give you an example, what happened then was that we, together with local promoters, we developed the Reeperbahn Festival along this infamous district of Reeperbahn and its clubs. So it was the district is known for emerging international talent in music. We tell the story of the Beatles like always, but always in connection with, it's still like that new bands are going through Hamburg and can make success from here on. And so there was the asset of the club scene, the new international young music coming to Hamburg, and and we put together a festival that represents exactly that. And from the first edition on, media and visitors understood the idea behind it, and we had a really nice growth out of our natural strength of Hamburg into a now one of the leading club festivals in Europe, at least. And this bounces back, as this is a brand strength of Hamburg. This bounces back on Hamburg in a general way, because people see Hamburg, recognize it, they like the idea, and so the city branding is a strategic approach, and the tourism was based on strong co-players.
Great. Yeah, I love Reeperbahn Festival. Chris, any campaigns or anything to share?
I'll kind of probably just reflect on two initiatives. One that I think picks up the kind of Hamburg trail a little bit in terms of brand, and then one that's more associated with developing talent. So from a brand perspective, we this year for the first time took an event that would previously been run on the outside of the city, called using one a brand that's very famous in Liverpool coming out, called Cream Fields, which is a kind of very well-known international brand. But we brought the Cream brand directly onto the waterfront, so right into the heart of the city. And that program included a Saturday night event, which was with the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra. So by default, we were bringing a completely different experience that, you know, a lot of people would never have thought about, in terms of the combination of a well-known festival, but bringing cultural music to the heart of a very young audience that necessarily wouldn't normally have been associated with that type of music. And it's to me, it's about how you connect this ecosystem together. So you bring the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra to an audience that's primarily a clubbing audience, and you create an electric atmosphere in the middle of your city centre, which creates the images and the brand profile that really brings your city to life. So I think there's a bit there about for us was about how we use festivals in a very different way to reflect the musical genres of the city, but also to bring brand profile to the city. The other one for us is about the pipeline. So this is work that we do through the Liverpool International Music Festival Academy. And this is an initiative that came off the back of a festival, in terms of ensuring that there was a way of engaging local artists who wanted to fundamentally create opportunity. So this academy provides an ability for those who want to, you know, develop their musical talent through that academy, but also ensure that through that route that they have the opportunity to be available to play on things like Cream at the Cream on the waterfront. So we provide the access for profile for these local bands and local opportunities to basically have a showcase for their talent. So in every event that we now do in terms of festivals that we have, to anybody that wants to bring a festival to Liverpool, we will fundamentally say, as part of that, we want you to provide a route to allow local talent to be represented within that festival. This gives us the opportunity of not only just bringing household names to the city, but giving a platform for that talent to see its way through. That, in the combination of those two different initiatives, enables us to basically inspire local talent, but also bring, you know, significant brands to the city. And I think it's this joining up of that type of thing that I think we are doing more and more of now, to make sure that local talent has a showcase. So there's a couple of examples of what we've done in Liverpool.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's super interesting. Bringing together different aspects to it. Upcoming artists, well-established artists, and really, you know, communicate your brand through it. I think it's super valuable. And Nora, I know you've been doing some amazing projects in Düsseldorf, like exhibition and the walking tour you just talked about. And I think those could be those are just a few of the initiatives that you've been introducing to Düsseldorf. So can you tell us a bit about those and what was the procedure to set those up?
Yes, I think I can speak about a few projects that we did during times of COVID, because I think Chris also already mentioned that it's very important to have strategies in place to support your local artists during times of crisis, and we don't really have these kind of overarching networks in place yet. But we did different projects to kind of counteract the effects of the pandemic, and we did different kind of smaller initiatives, so to say. I mean, we've created a playlist for the sound of Düsseldorf. We've started a podcast that also features bands and musicians from Düsseldorf. We've created a content series called The Sound of Düsseldorf Mixtape that is curated by a Düsseldorf kind of local who works at a concert agency. And this mixtape series, it presents current artists and bands that are also part of the playlist that we created. But in terms of a really big project that we did during those times is we worked together with Google Arts and Culture for the Music Makers and Machines project, kind of this huge virtual exhibition about the history of electronic music, including 50 partner institutions from 15 different countries worldwide. And it was, this, I mean, it was a big project. It took us a long time, but I think the result, the overall result from all the partners and also from what we managed to create for Düsseldorf is really amazing. We work together with the two guides who also do our pop music walk, because they are music journalists and they really do know their stuff, and they are really music nerds. So we asked them to collaborate with us on this project, and we created different stories around Kraftwerk, obviously, and the Kling Klang studio, but also different sound labs that were important for electronic music in Düsseldorf, such as the Salon des Amateurs, the electronic club, or also the Cream Cheese, the kind of institution where artists like Josef Beuys and musicians like Kraftwerk were regular visitors. So this is a really, really amazing project that we were very honored to be part of. And I think it's interesting because I also saw that since Johannes mentioned Reeperbahn, the festival, I think you also worked together with Google Arts and Culture for the Reeperbahn festival this year, right?
And for other projects as well. So the idea of Elbphilharmonie was one of our lighthouse projects within the music that brought us broad awareness, and thanks to partners like Google and others, we could promote Hamburg worldwide via music on that.
Yeah, you just mentioned like Google as one of your partners and different strategies, both for Dusseldorf and Hamburg. But I wanted to pick your brain a little and see if you had like any examples of a partnership that you never saw coming, or like that is kind of unexpected, to kind of highlight that maybe you can develop partnerships with really any realities or any companies that can make an impact and have an impact and a contribution on your cities. Talking about music, maybe like it's a private company, it's an institution from abroad, maybe it's a sister city. So what kind of like weird and nice and unexpected relationships have been developed, if you can think of any, just to pick your brains?
think it's a tricky one in the context of the fact that I think we sometimes discover on a kind of on a daily, weekly basis, or unearth the different relationships that have started to and different companies that have, whether that's a publishing label, or whether it's a recording artist, or whether it's a new initiative that fundamentally half the challenge is about getting the intelligence and the communications to understand what's actually going on, that you can then maximize the relationship from. So I think, I'll go back to what I said earlier, really, in terms of the fact that we have an amazing amount of talent that operates within the city. We still probably don't know the full range of that amazing talent at this moment in time. So if we began to really understand the ecology that we have here, and we create a rationale for that ecology to communicate and connect with us, then fundamentally we will create more and more opportunities off it. So sometimes we come across it. So, we have it with brands like Circus, who are, a well-established international nightclub rave operator. They got involved with us on the event research program because fundamentally they got involved with us because we helped them during the COVID pandemic, and that's how they then repaid that interest by putting on a major event as part of the event research program. So there are different, and it's the same with the cream brand that I mentioned earlier. So half of the thing for us is actually about creating the connections and giving a reason actually for a lot of these people to want to engage with city marketing, to enjoy the city at all, because they're busy doing what they do. So we have to find reasons to unearth them. And of course that, is not just about us doing it for promotional purposes. It's about us also addressing some of the concerns that they have. And we might come to that towards the end of the session in terms of some of the challenges we have about making sure that businesses in a thriving, growing, living city, sometimes these music businesses are the ones that suffer as development and property values rise, and we have to be seen to be wanting to help them with issues like that, as well as licensing and other things, if we want to engage them effectively when it comes to things that will really help the city. So it has to be a two-way street. And although we've made a lot of progress on that, we've still got a way to go. Still got a way to go to build trust and recognition that we can support, and not only just come to them when we want something that's going to be good for the city. We have to basically go to them when they're having an issue as well, and we have to get, still have to get a lot of our people in the city to recognize the importance of music tourism, the importance of music to the city, both reputationally and also to protect it and make sure that it doesn't get treated in such a way that it's not dealt with. And we know, cities like Sydney have had this sort of challenge in the past as well. So it's, to me, you unearth these opportunities by creating the conditions to fundamentally have the environment where these things all come together. So for me, it's just not one thing or one other thing. It's about that whole ecology coming together that sees mutual benefit for all.
Do you think the music office has helped in that way? Because having like a point of contact that is both music, but also city, from the city perspective. So it's kind of that middle ground for businesses and people to kind of reach out to the city and have that kind of as a service for them to really connect with the right people if they want to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. If we hadn't had the music board, I don't think we'd have made the progress we've made, because that music board helped a lot of those businesses with grant applications, with funding applications during the COVID pandemic, helped them in terms of networking, advice. So actually became very much nothing about marketing at all, because we had nothing to market at that time. There was much more about business support, business survival. Those sort of things coming together, bringing different venues together. That's where we really started, actually. Even though it took a pandemic to do it, we started to really understand the ecology, because it drew out a lot of people who needed help. And without the music board in place, and without that music officer in place to be able to basically conduct the processes that need, then we wouldn't fundamentally have learned as much as we did. What we have to do is build from it and make sure that we harness that direction and the camaraderie that came together versus COVID, to make sure that is what is a legacy for us going forward. But we still have a lot of work to do about there are it's not across all parts of the city, but some people sometimes have a lack of understanding about the importance, of economically and reputationally of a vibrant music sector. They sometimes take it for granted and don't necessarily give it the due deference we would like, but the music board help us a great deal with that, and they will continually help us with that going forward.
Chris, would you allow me to ask, how big is the office that you spoke about?
So we basically we have one music officer. You probably know Kevin McManus, a very well known in the music scene, and a music board of around 14 on the music board, made up of a diverse range, but then connects into the broader work that we do within Marketing Liverpool. So that basically those resources work in and out of that. So we could do with more in that space, to be brutally honest. There's more work to do than Kevin can do on his own, that's for sure. So it's about creating this is about connecting and making sure that music is not just seen as a silo, it's seen as a vibrant sector, in the same way as we've tried to do with film and sport and other things that make the city special. So it's about making sure that we don't take it for granted. If you take the music sector for granted, then fundamentally you're going to have trouble. And you might have a great scene one minute, but you won't have a great scene the next minute if you've allowed development to come in and people to basically take out, sometimes people, because land values go up, somebody comes in, decides to build an apartment and decides that the music venue down the road that actually made that place special in the first place is the place that has to go because there's too much noise now. So there's a lot of things in that space that we have to get right. And therefore, I think what point I'm trying to say, although from our perspective as a marketeer, this is music is a great brand for us. If we don't get the other bits right, we have nothing to market. So, I would always say to anybody, if you've got a great sector, don't take it for granted. Work at it, harness it, give it the support it requires, but also give it the support it needs on the hard to do bits, not just the easy bits, which sometimes we take for granted.
Yeah, and you just mentioned how volatile scene can be, and Johannes, Hamburg's music scene is super eccentric and vibrant, especially in the St. Pauli district and on the Reeperbahn, like far beyond the Reeperbahn festival. So it goes on 365 days a year. Could you please tell us a bit more about what goes into the planning and the marketing of a music district, such as the St. Pauli district?
It's an interesting question because, Hamburg wasn't proud of St. Pauli for a long time. There was a mayor that is quoted by saying, someone from the real Hamburg citizen wouldn't visit Reeperbahn. And so the Reeperbahn Festival was a great pacemaker in the acceptance of the idea of clubs and live music in the recent years, and it helped a lot in making people understand how the club scene is driving not only an entertainment within Hamburg, but tourism and a business ecosystem, and far beyond music, that there's a lot of agglomerated industries around it in this area, like advertisement, film, whatever. Lots of creative industries are very much related to music, and so it was a long way to and it's not a given fact that it will remain in the heads of people, that music is somehow an essential part within the creative industries, and something that is much more important than only for entertainment at night. I think it was there isn't a strategic development of the or marketing for the district, but the aspects that are connected to the district, as for example music, creativity, creative industries, young, vibrant, international community. These aspects are essential part in our marketing and are important for the city all over.
Great. And that says a lot, I think, about how a district can change really, like with music. Maybe it's a district that is not seen as as good, but maybe international tourists find it like amazing and they visit it. And so it kind of also shifts the perspective of like city planning and marketing to really start investing in that and really making sure that it's as good as it can be and the businesses are supported. So I think we should host another different, like a total different panel on districts and music and how that impacts tourism. But that was super interesting, I think, to touch upon. Yeah, so the pandemic obviously has been a huge problem both for tourism and for music. So I mean, working at the intersection of music tourism I don't think it's been very easy for you. But what are the next steps now that things start to look a little bit better and brighter moving forward? What do you think is the next step for you in your city for music tourism? And that goes to all of you. Nora, maybe you want to start?
Yeah, we are really looking forward to an exhibition that is going to open in December and is going to run until, I think, May of 2022, I'm sorry. And it's an exhibition at the Kunstpalast, which is one of the major museums here in the city. And it is called Electro from Kraftwerk to Techno. And it's the first major exhibition of the Kunstpalast on the subject of music, and it's really interesting that they tend to develop in this area more and more, and that the art institutions are also investing in this topic more and more. And the exhibition is about musical instruments. It's about it includes different multimedia installations, graphic design, all things like that. It's going to be really interesting. And also it's in collaboration with Kraftwerk's co-founder Ralf Hütter. So it's about to, I think, be a very important exhibition for us that we are going to support in any way that we can. And yeah, I think that is the next step that we are working towards in terms of very concrete tourism marketing measures. It really just talking about different types of digital advertising and content strategies, and also press relations, obviously. But in the long run, it is not only about supporting these individual events. Obviously, we aim to create a long-term strategy that kind of harnesses the power of music tourism in Düsseldorf as a whole.
Thanks. Johannes, what's next for Hamburg?
3 palm trees, 1 oasis. So on the classical sector, we'll celebrate 5 years Elbphilharmonie very soon, and this will be a moment to look back, but to look forward into the future as well, and to promote classical music especially. Then we'll establish a new musical play, Harry Potter, very soon. This was meant to open during the pandemic, couldn't happen, will happen now. And this will give an impulse on musical tourism. I'll be sure that this will be a really nice success. And third, in pop culture, Reeperbahn Festival must be re-established to the size it had before the pandemic. And there's lots of work to do to bring all the international partners back to Hamburg, all the business visitors, and all the fans, and lots of difficult tasks on that. And the Oasis, we have to make sure that all the clubs and promoters will survive, because the crisis isn't over for them. They will have a really hard 2 or 3 years to go. Lots of concerts have been postponed. All worldwide concert industry hasn't started working as it worked before. A lot of talent is gone, and I talk about technical staff as well. Massive problems in promoting concerts now, and all that affects us. And we have to make sure that they can all come back and survive this time, and the clubs as well. Did I mention the clubs already? Clubs are important.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly reinforce Johannes in the context of the fact that the worst thing we can think of is that everything's back to normal and the pandemic's a done deal. It's not. It's still very much alive and kicking it, and the legacy of it will be with us for many years to come. So we have a lot of work to do to retain that support to music businesses as we go forward. We mustn't forget that. I think for us, it's about maximizing and building on things that we were sort of starting pre-pandemic. So this was really, maximizing the Beatles' legacy, but in a different way. So we'll do that by celebrating some stuff around Brian Epstein in the next few months. We really want to basically do more with our UNESCO title. I don't think we've done enough with that. I think we're proud to have that title. We haven't really maximized it. And we've got a lot more work to do with our music heritage. I mentioned that in the context of black music as well. But we will also have we've also got some sort of pedantic things to deal with. We've got to get better. We've got to get better at giving our consumers better understanding of the venues that are here, how to access them, around ticketing, around a whole pile of things that really, make sure that we're giving people who come to the city the best experience of the city they can have. We're getting better at that. We're not quite there yet. And we have to basically, encourage more people to use the city as a playground for undertaking music festivals and events. But they must fit within that dynamic I mentioned earlier about coming here and leaving a legacy and leaving something which fundamentally helps the indigenous population of music to be developed as a brand. And I think the other part of that is, we have an ambition that Liverpool is recognised within the UK as the most exciting and vibrant city. We won't do that without music. We can do it with music, but we can't do it without music. So it's also about the contribution music means to the sense of place, why people want to come and do university here, why they want to live and stay here. Music is an inherent part that crosses across all of that. And, that I think we've learned that through COVID, and we need to ensure that we maintain a progress going forward that really maximizes the music offer, but also recognizes, as Johannes mentioned earlier, about the importance of supporting it and recognizing it's been badly damaged, and there's a lot of work still to be done to get it back to the levels that we experienced pre-COVID.
Thank you. I guess we have less than a minute left, but I just wanted to do another super quick round of for you to present tell me two keywords if you had to give an advice to a city that is looking at starting to use music for tourism. Just 2 words. What would be the key ones for you? Nora?
Be sure of your strengths and brand, focus, and work with the local local scene and partners.
I'd say that you have to make sure that music can be felt in the atmosphere of the city, but that you also have institutions and just locations that people can visit. And I think looking at strawberry fields, for example, in Liverpool, that is an example where it probably works quite well. So it is important for the atmosphere but also for the kind of the location that people can visit.
For me, Alice, building on the other 2 great contributions, I think collaboration for me really important in terms of creating a mechanism that people want to collaborate with, and fundamentally, being very focused about what you're good at and what you're not good at, and being rifle shot about that. and not trying to be all things to all men, I think is often the difficulty in many cases. So I think, within that's a lot more than 2 words, I understand, but in a way, that sort of, for me, epitomizes the fact that without collaboration and without mutual respect and support, you have no music sector.
Thank you. Well, I encourage you all to go and check out the official tourism website for each of these exciting cities and learn more about the amazing things they've been doing with music. From our side, Music Cities Events will be hosting a number of events on these topics in 2022. So if you're interested, just head to musiccitiesevents.com to find out more about the upcoming conferences. Or you can just send me an email at alice@sounddiplomacy.com if you'd like. Yeah, that's it from us. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and thanks again to our speakers for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.